In the late 1800s, there was something called the Dawes Rolls, which was basically a census that made records of people's ethnic backgrounds in order to determine which Native American tribes would get certain land allotments and other benefits. After slavery, many black people were associated with some of these tribes by bloodline, through marriage, through adoption, and even servitude. And because they were associated with these tribes, many black people were entitled to some of these benefits. The government did not want blacks to get these benefits, so they created a separate freedmen's list specifically for black people. They also started to list any full-blooded Native American who had African features as black because they didn't want them getting those benefits either. At the same time, they allowed white citizens to come in and pay money under the table to be listed as part Native American.
1895 and 1896, when a lot of the whites found out the benefits that these blacks are going to be entitled to, a lot of whites went to the Dawes Commission and say, look, why don't you put my name on there? They said, but you're not an Indian. So that's what they said, well, I'll give you $5. So then the rule got around, the policy got around that for $5 that a white could put his name on the Dawes rolls and be called himself an Indian and be entitled to all these benefits, and all their children could be entitled to all these benefits forever. And so that became known as what's called a $5 Indian. And so if you go around now and check most of the Indians, the so-called Indians in America, about 90% of them are not even Indians. Those are just whites now who are passing as Indians. But they're getting all the benefits. And they're not paying any taxes, getting free college education. They put up a little reservation on the land that they don't live on. They have another home off and get all kind of benefits.
Iron Eyes Cody was another famous Native American person. He was in the media for years. In the 1970s, they utilized him for this pollution commercial. He was known as the Crying Indian. So he was a very well-known Native American in American culture. But the reality is, Iron Eyes Cody wasn't Native American at all. He was Sicilian. Both of his parents were from Sicily. So he didn't have one drop of Native American blood in him. He was another fake Indian.
Shalom, brothers. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai. Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai. Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai. Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Wa Barak, Wa Rapar, Wa Kazak. To the apostles, elders, and the brethren throughout the four corners. Shalom. Back again with a lesson. This lesson, I think I'm going to call it a brief history of the term $5 Indian. Now, the term $5 Indian basically means a white person 125 years ago, basically, that paid $5 to get on what's called the Dawes Rolls, which were set up to categorize the different tribes. And they set it up dealing with, I believe it was the 5 civilized tribes that they focused on. And what they did was, once the Bureau of Indian Affairs was set up and the United States government awarded reparations to Native Americans, what was going on is when you had these different government agents that would go into certain reservations or certain lands where different tribes were located, they were doing something called the Dawes Rolls. And when they were doing that, white people got the word of it and would come and give them $5. So now remember, this is 125 years ago. $5 was a lot of money then. Would give them $5. They would get put on the Dawes Rolls, and then an actual native or a person who was that you would call an African American who was married into a native tribe or had children with a Native American, and those children would have claim to get a BIA check and to be able to get their education for free and get certain loans because of their Native American heritage. They weren't able to do that. They weren't able to become a part of that, because what they did was they systematically made sure that Negroes would not have access to that generational money that would be coming. And they cut a lot of Native Americans out of that too. But there were a good amount of Native Americans that actually were able to partake to get on the Dawes rolls and get a BIA check. But there's a lot of you walking around today in America that are calling yourself African American, but you're really Native Americans. Because the so-called white man, they made it so that way you couldn't get on the Dawes rolls. They also did a practice throughout the country here in America where they would physically go to the town halls and change birth certificates of Native Americans that said Native American and change it to African American. So that way you can't later go and become part of a tribe and get on the Dawes rolls and then get these benefits that were set up for Native Americans. White people got those benefits. That's why if you go to a powwow right now, it's a bunch of white people there dressed up and trying to do the traditional dance and the fancy dance, and they looking at you like, what the hell are you doing here? Because 125 years ago, their great granddad paid $5 to get on the Dawes rolls of the Cherokee tribe or Choctaw or Miccosukee or whatever, and they got on the Dawes rolls of those tribes, and now the actual people who are actually Cherokee or actually Choctaw, actually Miccosukee or whatever the case may be, Seminole, whatever the case may be, can't get on the Dawes rolls of the tribe. Therefore, they can't get a BIA check. Therefore, they can't get none of the benefits that were set aside for Native Americans for the atrocity that was committed against them by the white man here in America. Now, this article, I did a lot of talking here at the beginning, but I'm just going to read through this. This article is called, is from a site called Indian Country Today. Paying to play Indian, the Dawes rolls, and the legacy of $5 Indians. See this Indian land for sale? It was all about capturing land. Get a home of your own, easy payments. Perfect title, possession within 30 days. Fine lands in the West. Irrigated, irrigable, grazing, agriculture, dry farming. In 1910, the Department of the Interior sold under sealed bios allotted Indian land as follows. Look at that. So this was all about reclaiming the land out west, going out west, that a lot of the natives, after the Indian Removal Act, a lot of the natives here on the East Coast were sent out west to the Black Hills, to Oklahoma, so on and so forth, right? So now once they were out there, then they set this thing up where they started selling their lands, and they set up something called the Dawes rolls and all that. Man, it's just a history of thievery of the so-called white man. That's why they you know what? Let me touch a scripture real quick. I'm gonna go and get start off with John 10 and 10. This describes you to the T. This is you in a nutshell. John 10 and 10. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. The thief cometh not, which is the so-called white man, for to steal and to kill. Just look at his history. He's the master of destruction and to destroy, and that's all he has done. Period. So now let me go back here to the article. It starts off, Dawes rolls rife with opportunities, with opportunistic white men and early appropriation. It may be fashionable to play Indian now, but it was also trendy 125 years ago, when people paid $5 a piece for falsified documents declaring them native on the Dawes rolls. The so-called $5 Indians paid government agents under the table in order to reap the benefits that came with having Indian blood. Mainly white men with an appetite for land, $5 Indians paid to register on Dawes rolls, earning fraudulent enrollment in tribes along with benefits inherited by generations to come. So that's what it was that was going on. Now I remember years ago, this is like 2000, me and Apostle Ricard, we were in Monroe, Connecticut. We went to a temp agency and we were filling out applications to get hired, to get some temp jobs. At the time I was in between jobs at the time. So, we were out there looking for work and signing up with this agency. And then this black woman pulled us to the side and she started talking to us. And she was really um talking to Apostle Rakah, right? She was really focusing on him because he had his Indian rings on. He had his silver rings on, right? And he had some turquoise. I think he had some turquoise, one turquoise earring or something like that. And the woman, she looked right away and knew, you know what I'm saying, that he was an Indian. She pulled us to the side and she was talking with her voice low because she was saying, she was trying to help us, to get some work because she was working there at the agency, and she was talking with a low voice with all the white people that were in the office and that were in there. She kind of pulled us to a corner and was talking to us on the side, and she was like, you know, she said, years ago we had to hide our identity as being Indians because we were literally being hunted and being killed. That's what the woman was saying. There was more to the conversation, but that was the gist of the conversation that we had with this woman in Monroe, Connecticut back in the year 2000, 2001, sometime around there. And but she was still like terrified in a way, and she was, talking to me and the brother in confidence on the side, and she was talking with a low voice, like so everybody couldn't hear what she was saying. So this is the history of America. I'm gonna go back here to this article. It says these opportunistic white men who wanted access to land or food rations, said Gregory Smithers, associate professor of history at Virginia Commonwealth University. These were people who were more than happy to exploit the Dawes Commission, and government agents for $5 were willing to turn a blind eye to the graft and corruption. Because really, what it was all about was a land grab. It was all about seizing Indian lands, and this was the technique that they came up with, setting up the Dawes Commission and making it so these nasty, uh, flimsy, uh, red animals can become a part of a tribe and have entitlement to those lands and get the government money and food rations. And then later on, there were also student loans and things like that that were paid on behalf of Native Americans because of the atrocities that was committed against them by the United States government, by the cavalry and all that. So they got on the Dawes rolls, and they got access to that. The scriptures say again, John 10:10, the thief comes not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. All right. It says the Dawes Commission established in 1893 to force the General Allotment Act of 1887, or the Dawes Act. So the General Allotment Act of 1887 was known as the Dawes Act, was charged with convincing tribes to cede their land to the United States and divide remaining land into individual allotments. The commission also required Indians to claim membership in only one tribe and register on the Dawes rolls, what the government meant to be a definitive record of individuals with Indian blood. Right? So they set this standard up of the Dawes rolls, and it was all about seizing the Native American land. You already seized the land already and put them on the res, and now you wanted to seize that land, and this is how you did it. So these reservations that have these um, casinos set up, people think, oh, the Indians are making money. No, the white people who are playing Indian, the $5 Indians who are sitting there acting like they're natives but they're not, are the ones that's getting the money. And the actual people of the tribe, a lot of them, the majority of them, are suffering and in poverty. And the ones that's getting the money and benefiting from the casinos is not the everyday people of the tribe. It's the actual $5 Indians that paid to get on the Dawes rolls some hundred and some odd years ago. Those are the ones that's benefiting from the casinos on native lands. Those are the ones that's benefiting. white people that's playing Indian. It says, I'm going to read this again. The Dawes Commission, established in 1893 to force the General Allotment Act of 1887, or the Dawes Act, was charged with convincing tribes to cede their land to the United States and divide remaining land into individual allotments. The commission also required Indians to claim membership in only one tribe and register on the Dawes rolls what the government meant to be a definitive record of individuals with Indian blood. So this was going to be the definitive standard that means you're Indian. So if you weren't a part of the Dawes rolls, then you're not Indian. So let me read. I got to touch on another scripture that deals with this. This is going to be the book of Micah, the 2nd chapter. Micah, start at 1. Micah 2 and 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity. That's iniquity that they devise. The Dawes Act, that's iniquity. Woe unto them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in their power. And that's exactly what they were doing. It says they covet fields, and that's what they did, because it was about seizing those Indian lands. It was an allotment act. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And that's exactly what you did to the Gadites. Okay? You did it to the Gadites, you did it to the Reubenites, you did it to Issachar, because out west, if a lot of you people out there don't know, Mexicans are Native Americans too, because California, Arizona, Texas, that was all Mexico before the so-called white man went out there and pushed them down and created a border and pushed them south of Texas. That was all Mexico. Mexican Indians are Native Americans also, by the way. It says, and they covet fields and they take them by violence. That's how you got America. It was through violence. You didn't vote for nothing. It was bloodshed. You stole it. And houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. There was even a point when you had the Plains Indians, okay, like the Apache, I believe the Apache and the Sioux, right? The Plains Indians, I'm just naming those two tribes in particular. When white people were paid to go out there and kill the buffalo, they would be on the trains that would be going across the plains, and they would be shooting their guns from the trains, killing the buffalo, so that way you killed the food supply of the Plains Indians and starved them out. And you were just killing different herds and herds of buffalo, so that way they had no food to eat, because those buffalo, when they killed the buffalo, that was meat. The skins that was used to make clothing. They even used the bones for different things, to make weapons, to build things, whatever the case may be. So even with that, that's why the scripture says, and they covet fields, they take them by violence, and houses, and they take them away, and they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And that's what this Dawes Rolls thing was about. Micah 2 verses 1, 2, and verses 1 and 2. That's the gist of it right there. So let me go back to the article. It says the Curtis Act, passed in 1898, targeted the 5 civilized tribes: the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, and the Seminole. Those were considered the 5 civilized tribes, forcing them to accept allotments and register on the Dawes rolls. So they were forced to accept these allotments and register on the Dawes rolls. The 2 acts, which came during a period of murky social context after the Civil War, when white and black men were intermarrying with Native American women, aimed to help the government keep track of real Indians while accelerating efforts to assimilate Indian people into white culture, Smithers said. By 1865, African Americans and white Americans were moving into the Midwest, into the Indian and Oklahoma territories, all vying for some patch of land they could call their own and live out their Jeffersonian view of independence. He said the federal government poured a lot of effort and energy into the Dawes Commission, but at the time, it was very hard for American, both Native and American governments to keep track of who was who, right? So, but now also what was going on, a lot of those Indian tribes, again, African Americans, runaway slaves, went amongst the Cherokee, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, the Creek, and the Seminole. African American slaves ran away and went amongst these tribes and married into the tribe and became warriors and became a part of the tribe and had children. So those children would have claim to uh, to be able to get benefits, a part of the to get on the Dawes rolls and be a part of the Dawes Commission. But again, being the devils that you are, you made it so that they couldn't get on the Dawes rolls. That's what you did. But that's the truth that really went on back then. You made sure that they couldn't get on the Dawes rolls, but you allowed these $5 Indians, these white people, to get on the Dawes rolls and claim that they're Native Americans and they're nothing more than a bunch of blood-sucking monsters. Because that's the truth. It says, the Dawes Commission set up tents in Indian Territory, said Bill Welch, Director Emeritus of the Oklahoma Historical Society's Office of American Indian Culture and Preservation. There, field clerks scoured written records, took oral testimony, and general enrollment cards for individuals determined to have Indian blood. That included authentic Indians, Welch said, but it also included lots of people with questionable heritage, you white people. It says commissioners took advantage of their positions and enrolled people who had very minimal or questionable connections to the tribes, he said. They were not adverse to taking money under the table, because that's when you white people were allowed to pay $5 to become part of a tribe. All right. So I'm going to pretty much end it with that part right there. No, I'm going to read a little bit more right here and then I'm going to end it off. The implications of such shady practices are erroneous, are enormous now. Smithers said $5 Indians passed their unearned benefits to heirs who still lay claim to tribal citizenship and associated privileges. So those $5 Indians, their heirs, there's a lot of these white people that are at these powwows. When you go to these powwows at these different reservations, the Shinnecock Reservation, the Narragansett Reservation, you go to a Cherokee res, so on and so forth, you see a bunch of white people there dressed up with feathers, like I said, trying to do the fancy dance and the traditional dance, playing Indian, and they're nothing more than $5 Indians. They don't have any Indian heritage at all. They're just white people who got on the Dawes, who paid to get on the Dawes rolls. So that way you can keep actual Indians and actual people who are descendants off of them and from getting those benefits. And from the benefits to be able to pass down generationally to the grandkids, the great grandkids, the great 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 grandkids, the great 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 grandkids, so on and so forth. It says, now we have people who are white, but who can trace their names back to the rolls used by tribal nations to ascertain who has rights as citizens, he said. That's because they paid, their great 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 granddaddy paid $5 to get on the Dawes rolls. So now you can trace your name back to your great 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 granddad who got on the Dawes rolls about 120 something years ago. So now that makes you Indian. Nah. That means we have white people who have the ability to vote at large. It means political rights. It means the potential to influence tribal policy on a whole range of issues. It means people have access to healthcare, education, and employment. The implications are quite profound for people who got away with fraud. All right. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this article in the description box when this video is uploaded on YouTube, so you can go read the whole article. You can take it, download it, whatever you want to do with it. So I'm gonna hit another scripture or two and end this off. Deuteronomy 28 and verses 33 and 34. And by the way, Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, this is talking about all the tribes. This ain't just talking about Judah, by the way. This is talking about all the tribes. All the tribes suffered this. All right. Now, I'm going to read Deuteronomy 28 and 33. It says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. And don't you think that that made them Gadites mad and pissed off as hell? It's one thing that you already stole their land and they're sitting on a reservation. Now you came and took that. And then generationally, you cut them out. You cut a good majority of them out and put white people up in there. So so pretty much those are the points that I wanted to make about the history of the Dawes Rolls and what the Dawes Commission set out. And so with that, I'm gonna say shalom, and I hope brothers got something out of this lesson.